Thank you.
And next we'll be hearing from Rich Burkmar, and he's a web application developer for UKCEH based in Lancaster. He's an ecologist and a biological recorder with an experience of digital technology, particularly the lovely GIS and web programming. And he's very well placed to tell us how the online atlas works. Please welcome Rich Burkmar.
The Zoom controls are covering up a lot of the web controls here. I realised that the previous talkers all had a really good joke to start with. I realised I hadn't prepared anything. But I know I've done a few of these live software presentations over the years, and laughter isn't really what you're aiming for. You're tittering, not laughing. You've probably done something wrong. That'll do, that's fine, I think I can see them all. Okay, so I hope you can see this. I've zoomed it out a bit on the page so that you can see the whole of the British Isles at once when you're looking at the screen. That is not the home page. Let me go to the, oh, let's drag it. There is the home page of the website. There are 4 main pages on the website, the home page, which you can see now, and the others all listed along that top navigation bar. So the main business end of the website is actually on this atlas page, but I thought I'd introduce you to the other 3 pages first. The home page is perhaps the most useful of the other pages, and mainly because of these links down the bottom. So for example, there's a link to download the introductory chapters of the book, and if I click on that, you can see it up there. That contains a lot of information that is useful for interpreting stuff that you might see on the website, particularly, for example, the trends charts, that kind of thing. There's also a link to the references which appear in the book, and also the country reports, the British and Irish report, the British one in Welsh version and an English version too. The other 2 pages, well, there's a background to the project, but that's, you know, quite a short background. You get much more information from that introductory chapter to the book and the acknowledgements, which you already, you've seen some of that stuff on Pete's slide, but it's there on the website as well. So let's go to the business end of the website, the Atlas page. So the first thing to say is that, yeah, we designed this very much with both full screen like this and mobile devices in mind, devices for different sizes. So when you look at this on a mobile device, you'll see quite a different layout. So the map or whatever, the information of interest will always be at the top. Any controls which here appear down the left-hand side always appear underneath. So if you're looking at it on a mobile device, you'll need to scroll down to see the controls. We're going to start straight away by searching for a taxon. And I'm going to type in office. Oh, no, I'm not. That's a mistake. Don't titter, I told you that. Office. Now, I want to point out a few things about this taxon selector. It's a bit of a work of genius, really. This is all by Tom Humphrey that's enabled this. It includes synonyms, so you can search on synonyms, you can search on Latin names, British names, and it works beautifully. So, for example, as a synonym here, if I was searching on the old name for man orchid, it would bring it up. But obviously, on the right-hand side there, you see the new name for it. If I search on that, oops. You'll have to excuse my finger trouble. I'm doing this on a pad, which I'm not used to. I usually use a mouse. If I search on orchid, English name, you can see it filters. It basically filters what's in this taxonomic list that Tom has developed. I'm going to pick fly orchid here. And this brings up by default a distribution overview, a map which you've seen several times on slides of previous presenters. But before I get to but there are other map types that you can display on here. But before I get to those, I want to show you these 4 general controls down here, which govern how the backdrop of the map appears. So we're looking at a colour elevation there, but we can have no backdrop if that interferes with how you interpret it. Everybody's eyes are different, especially with colours. Or you can have a grey elevation backdrop. We'll switch back to colour because that's what we're used to looking at. Give the trouble again. Also the insets. So by insets I mean we've got the Northern Isles inset up here, we've got the Channel Isles down the bottom, but some people prefer to see those in their natural positions. So you can choose no insets and you'll see those appear in the natural positions. I'd like to scroll down to show you the bottom, but there we go. So there's Channel Islands down the bottom in its natural position. You can also choose to have Channel Islands inset on its own, but keep the Northern Isles in their natural position if you like. I tend to prefer using the Northern Isles and Channel Isles inset because it makes the page a little bit more compact. You don't have to do so much scrolling around. 100-kilometre grid lines, I've got none on there at the moment, but you can show them as solid lines, or you can show them as dashed lines. I quite like the dashed lines, but we'll take them off so not to interfere too much visually with what we're looking at. Boundaries, we've got no boundaries on there at the moment, but you can show country boundaries, or Vice County boundaries. And we'll come to the zoomable map in a minute. This is much more useful on the zoomable map when you're sort of zooming in and out, but you can show it on this overview map too. I'm going to take those off for now. And I'm going to change to another taxa actually. I should have done that before to show you more. When I go into these map types to show you more dots to look at. So I'm going to put field maple. So there's a distribution overview for the field maple. Now you'll see for these different map types, which I can select from this drop-down list here, when I select the different map types, the controls underneath that drop-down might change. Well, they will change. I've used it before. So for this distribution overview, there is this show status checkbox, and if I check that, you'll see that we now see the native and the alien split up colour-wise as Pete just mentioned. I'm going to go now to this different map type. So that's the only map type which is in the book. Okay. But these other ones are available on the website. So the first one is distribution by year range. So these year ranges can be atlas periods or sort of inter-atlas periods, as it were, and it allows you to kind of filter records depending on what you select in this slider underneath. So here we're on 2000 to 2019. So that any hectad where the most recent record was in that period is shown as this dark or this black colour, and anything earlier is shown as grey, and we can slide that back, and as we slide it back, any more recent records, so in this one for example, any more recent records than 1986 are taken out of that analysis, so hectads that were only recorded for that taxa after 1986 come off from that. So you could kind of scroll back in time a little bit, I suppose, using that map. Then there are the change maps. And there's a slider under that one which allows you to switch between 2 periods. So here on this map, we've got gains in hectads shown as, or hectads which are newly recorded for that taxa, if you like, are shown with that upward point in gain orange triangle. No changes, that sort of salmon square, and losses of the downward point in black arrow. And this is comparing the period, the atlas period 1987 to 1999 to the current one. So the current to the previous one. That's the change over those periods. And the other one shows you the change over between the current period and the early one, 1930 to 69. The final one there visible at the moment is tetrad frequency. So for this map, it is showing you by dot size, not colour now, the number of tetrads within each hectad for which the taxon was recorded. I want to show you another feature while we're on that map. This is actually available on all the maps. If I scroll down a bit so you can see it, you see at the bottom there's this hectad tetrads where present. As you move the mouse over, as you hover over any dot, it gives you the information. So what hectad was it, and the information in this case, the tetrads where present, and it gives you the actual number. So that feature is available on the other types of maps too. So if I went to, for example, distribution by overview and did it, I get a different type of information shown down there. So for whatever map type you're looking at, you can move the mouse over the dot and you'll see that information. If you're using a mobile device, it's not possible really. You've got no mouse hover type equivalent on a mobile device. You have to click on it. And of course, those dots are too small to click on. But when we look at the zoomable map later, you'll see that you can zoom right in and you can pick on individual dots. And this feature is available on that display as well, so you can get around it that way. Okay, so at the bottom here, we have two more buttons. There's a download image, and whatever map you've got displayed, if you click that download image, it downloads it to your browser. And I don't know what will happen if I double click that, but presumably it'll open in some program. Photos. Okay, so that's a bitmap which you could just cut and paste or save it somewhere and put it in a Word document. There's also the option to do that as SVG, which is a more scalable format, which is better if you wanted to perhaps put it on a web page or something like that. You've also got the option, only for the distribution overview map, which we've got selected here, to download the data, either as a CSV or as a GeoJSON file, which is a format which is great for looking at in GIS, like QGIS or something like that. That's only available for the distribution overview. If I go to distribution by year range, that becomes greyed out. Okay, let's have a look at the zoomable map. So whatever map you're displaying, you can look at it at that overview map, but you can also switch backwards and forwards between the overview and the zoomable map. And it's just a standard sort of slippy map that you've all used in dozens of different applications on the web, I'm sure. It enables you to zoom in and examine data in more detail. So as you can see, you know, if I was using a mobile device now, I'd be able to click on those dots and get that information under the map as well. So that changes as I change the map type, as you'd expect, and it's exactly the same information, but just displayed on a more interactive, explorable device or format. Okay, before we move off of this summary page, the map page, let's have a look at the caption information down the right-hand side. Again, my control is a little bit obscured by the Zoom stuff here, but I think I've got it. If I scroll that down, I want to point out the trend overviews, which have been mentioned several times already. Kevin talked about these in his introduction today. And the way I think about the colours on these is that the more spread out the colours are, the more variability there is in the data which is specifying the trends. The more concentrated it is, like this post 1987 trend for Ireland, then the less variability there is in the data. You can hover over any of these categories and see what the category is and what the sort of percentage of the evidence, if you like, is for that trend. Here, there's no evidence that there's any strong decline. There's sort of most of the data, nearly all of the data points to there being a strong increase in that. There are several other features of the caption, like this taxa covered here, which by default aren't shown because they take up a lot of space, but you can click on the little show button there and it will expand it out. So for taxa, like this one, field maple, where there are other taxa forms, varieties, or whatever that are included in it, those are listed there, but not all of the taxa will have that. It's only shown if it's relevant. down towards the bottom, in the book there is references. The website has a few more because of room considerations. Yeah, so you can get more references for. I can't scroll now because I can't see the control. There it is. I think I've just got to go to the edge of it. There we go. You can see them down there. At the very bottom is the recommended citation. So each page, each taxon, I don't realise it's come on, has a slightly different recommended citation because it includes the taxon name. So if you ever wanted to cite something you've read in this anywhere, you could just go here, you can press that button to copy it as text rather than try and highlight it and do Control-C or whatever, and you can then paste that into your Word document or whatever. There's also an HTML one so that you can, that gives you the formatting like the italics and so on if you're going to put it on a web page. Okay, so that's everything on the summary page. Let's see if I can find the scroll bar again. Here we are. We're still on the Atlas page, okay? So I said that's it for the summary page, but really the summary thing is a tab on the Atlas page. So we're still on the Atlas page, but we're going to go to look at some of these other tabs along here. So this is the conservation tab. So it tells you the conservation status of the species you select. This one's a bit boring. Let's pick something a bit more. So you can see the information is displayed under the categories column there. The stuff under the links is static, that doesn't change, but it takes you to the authoritative source for that, that designation or that category. There's a gallery tab, which is where the picture library is. And only a couple of pictures in here. You can either select them from the thumbnails at the bottom, or you can use the sort of scrolling buttons there. I've got to go back to Build Maple. Oh, I typed the wrong files. Oh, Build. There are a lot more pictures for that, and you can actually scroll by dragging that thumbnail bar along the bottom to find the picture that interests you, and then click on it. You can enlarge that. You can go to make the image display take up the full screen, this gallery feature, by clicking on that button there. And then you can further zoom in if you like, using the zoom in button here. So that takes it to the sort of full image resolution, so you can drag that around. But normally, oh, there we go. See, I lost that. We'll zoom out again and then go down to the normal display. So there's your gallery. The Trends tab. These are 4 different views, really, 4 different ways of expressing the same kind of data, the trend data. For me, the most intuitive one is that first one, the smooth time trend. What I really want to show you is the controls that we can use to tailor that display on the website. So those are the displays for Britain. We can change it to Ireland. Oh, trouble again. And we can also go to the different countries. So you can do this on a country by country basis. So let's go to Wales. That is showing long-term trends. It tells you up here, as I change these buttons down the left-hand side, you can see at the top, it tells you exactly what you're looking at there. So I can change this now to the short-term trend. It changes the display there. There are also a couple of controls which are to do with scaling. So if I look at the axes on this figure 1, for example, it goes from 0.35. Let's go back to actually Britain. That's a bit more long term. It goes from 0.36 to 0.448. When you just look at that, if you don't take notice to axis, you might think that's a real dramatic change. So the first scaling option there is to actually use an absolute scale. So it goes from 0. So you can get a better idea there. like you can compare species better, I guess, using that. The second one is about this bottom figure here, which I won't even attempt to explain because I would do it wrong, but it changes the comparison. It equalizes the area under the curve actually there. But unless you're really interested in that chart, that probably isn't of much interest to you. Okay, I should say some of these, there is some information on these charts at the bottom, but if you're really interested in this stuff, I really recommend that you read the introduction to the atlas, which, as you know, you can download from the homepage anyway. Onto the phonology tab. So Peter's already talked about these. We've got the occurrency, which is when records are recorded. So these two charts here, the one on the left and the one on the right, are both driven by the records that the volunteers collected to make this whole project. The exception is the phonology, so that is taken from another source. So depending on what taxon you select, this section of the data under here, sorry, text under here, will tell you where the data for that phonology graph were taken from. I'm going to change this chart to Marsh Marigold. The reason I want to do that is because of that chart on the right. So it's quite a good one that shows how the apparency of this taxon is changing as I'm going further north. So it's shifting to the right. So it's becoming more apparent, being recorded more later in the season, probably because the flowers more later in the season, I would suspect. There is a scaling function on this as well. So you can see at the top, we can just about see, yeah, there seems to be more records further to the right there, but it's quite hard to see because there aren't many records. But you can scale it so that the number of records is sort of taken out of the picture. It equalizes the sort of height of these, and then you can see much more clearly for that there seems to be a change, a shift to the right as you go further north. Finally, let's look at the altitude chart, which has already been described very well by Pete, but I just want to show there's an interactive feature on here as well, which is that you can, let's go to a different one. I'm going to go to Raspberry. So it's showing nicely. I like this chart. It shows, you know, that the further north you go, the lower altitude this species can be recorded at. But if you're interested in and the size of the dots, let me say, so the size of the dots relates to the percentage of the tetrads that are available within that altitude, latitudinal space where that taxon has been recorded. So the number of tetrads can be very, very different for any of these squares, but it's sort of equalized by looking at the percentage of those tetrads where the thing is found. And if you really want to look at the ones where it's found most, you might want to remove these lower dots from the map and you just click on them. So they're interactive. They toggle on and off. I can get my fingers to work again. Okay, and you can do it from the map as well. So you can toggle them on and off from the map. One final thing I want to say is that we put a little bit of effort as well. Well, there's two things I want to say. One is that we put some effort into making sure that if you wanted to print something from this website, as well as those buttons, the download image button here, you might want to print all the information on that page. And so if you go to the browser's print function, we put some effort into making sure that it was nicely formatted for printing. So you get the map on the first page, and as you scroll down, you've got the other information with all those expandable boxes expanded, but all the controls that you're not interested in are taken off for the print. Okay. And the very final thing I want to say is that between all the data, the 30 million records that you guys and all the volunteers and all the county recorders collated and sent in, and they all go into that database, that BSBI database. But to get them into onto this website, we were taking a snapshot of it so that we don't have to continually query the database. It's a snapshot in time. And that was quite a technical challenge. And I just want to pay tribute really to Tom Humphrey, who did all the work really on marshalling that data from the database to this website. The website is really just a way of, it's a template which looks at the data, it's driven by the data, and Tom really sort of quickly and responsively would reformat that data and send it to me. And when there are updates to the data, he would take a new cut and send it to me. And we worked out a good routine between us to do that. And yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, a lot of the technical work for this was done by Tom as well. That's it.